Hi, I'm Louise Holland.
And my name's Colette Simonczyk.
And we're here today to share with you the findings of our research, Social Impact and the Wrekin Housing Trust. The reason why we chose to do this research is that we're very passionate about it because Wrekin Housing Trust is increasingly looking at how it can build social value into its procurement of services, and there's a lot of discussions going on within the organisation about how it can do this. I'm also involved in a new venture where we're looking for a social enterprise to deliver some of our services locally, and it's proven to be really creative and innovative in the way services are delivered, and it got me really excited about the whole area, so this is why we chose to do this area. The purpose of the presentation is to provide you with an overview of our research, which critically analyses social impact using both primary and secondary research and the Wrekin Housing Trust as a case study. We then draw conclusions and recommendations as to whether it's a fad or solution, and the merits or demerits for the Wrekin Housing Trust. Just to run through the format for the presentation, I'm going to provide you with some background information to social impact and its definition. I'm going to share with you how the Public Services Social Value Act 2012 is being introduced and what it means for different sectors. I'll also share with you the many models that exist for measuring social impact. I'll then hand over to Colette, who will share with you our key findings on social impact and the primary research we've done with a social value consultant. I'll then look at our case study organisation, the Wrekin Housing Trust, and then Colette will draw our conclusions and recommendations. Creating social impact isn't a new concept, but it has evolved into a contemporary issue for management more recently. The global recession in 2008 has had a significant impact on society, as we know, and it's really increased the pressure for government to think about how it can get businesses and organisations to think about their corporate social responsibility. They've done this more recently through the Public Services Social Value Act 2012, which became law on the 31st of January 2013. And it requires public bodies to consider the economic, social and environmental well-being of an area when they commission and procure services. So basically what this means is for them to consider how £1 spent on delivering services produces a wider benefit to the community. This is a definition of social impact that's used by Social Enterprise UK. Basically, the effect of an activity on the social fabric of the community and well-being of individuals and families. This is another definition of social impact that we found, which is a bit more academic, and I'll let you read through that. Okay, so how has the Act been introduced? Well, some recent research that's been carried out by Social Enterprise UK in their research Communities Count, the 4 steps to unlocking social value, showed of the 77 local authorities and 123 housing associations that participated in the research, there was many examples of how they are delivering social value. Organisations are creating trainee and apprenticeship positions and also looking at volunteering opportunities both within their own organisation but also through their contractors and suppliers. They're partnering with social enterprises who engage with disadvantaged individuals to deliver services. They're delivering community safety and cohesion projects. They're providing debt advice and welfare assistance to tenants and getting involved in health and social care schemes around health and nutrition and healthy lifestyles, for example. Okay, so what does the Act mean for different sectors? Well, for the public sector, it can very much be seen as a tool to achieve social outcomes through others. And for housing associations like the Wrekin Housing Trust, it could be seen as a tool for improving a local area. For housing associations, this is really important because it has got a lot of assets tied up in its properties in many neighbourhoods and also has some form of responsibility for improving the quality of life of its tenants. For the private sector, if the public sector do embrace the Act and they build into their commissioning and procuring the services the requirement to deliver social value and impact, then for those larger companies they will need to give greater consideration to social value in order to win the contracts in the future. For smaller businesses, there may also be greater opportunities to deliver services locally. For the third sector, social enterprises and charities may be given a greater opportunity to win public sector contracts and deliver them in different ways, because social value is at the heart of what they do as organisations. Our research showed, though, that measuring social impact is very complex and is cited as one of the biggest barriers and challenges for organisations and businesses. This slide shows just some of the many models that exist for measuring social impact. For example, Kaplan and Norton's balanced scorecard approach, the quadruple bottom line, the logic model, social impact assessment, social return on investment, and more recently the Cabinet Office have launched a website, Inspiring Impact, to help practitioners, which shows 70 impact and outcome measures and 20 diagnostic tools. These are just some examples, and the list goes on and on. I'm now going to hand you over to Colette, who will share with you our key findings on social impact.
So 18 months on from the introduction of the Public Services Social Value Act, we've got here a list of some of the findings from the local authorities and social housing associations that took part in the research. 80% cited employment as a key social value priority. 2/3 identified better service provision, community relations. 71% of social value led to better service delivery, with 52% identifying cost savings. 82% identified improvements in external relationships and image. Peter Holbrook, Chief Executive for Social Enterprise UK, identified that social value can be a strategy for obtaining innovation in service delivery, achieving cost savings and not just creating social outcomes. Further research identified that public bodies should be including social value in the commissioning and procurement of their contracts. Yet we've already heard from Louise that 1/3 don't consider social value within their processes. We've heard that the biggest barriers and challenges are the defining and measuring social value, but there's no requirement to actually prove social impact. Therefore, those claiming to create social value may not be doing so. Communities Count research, the 4 steps to unlocking social value, identified 4 key steps. This was for organisations to define the improvements that an organisation wants, and that's in terms of their vision. To integrate the vision throughout all their operations so it just doesn't become a tick box exercise. To work in partnerships within our communities, as some of the difficulties that we face need to be dealt with through partnerships, and to measure the outcomes of social impact and communicate that message to businesses so that we can get the buy-in from organisations and businesses. Other findings identified that the contracts awarded to social enterprise remains low. Prejudice still exists around their capabilities to deliver the larger contracts that the private sectors already do. We've heard that the motivation of public bodies is questionable, in terms that obviously 1/3 are not considering social value when they're pulling together the procurement and commissioning processes. Social enterprises work with disadvantaged individuals that could be carrying out services for little or no pay, which could in fact result in the loss of jobs in the private sector should they be awarded more contracts. We identified that it's a low priority for directors in the private sector. It's seen as a non-core function and can sometimes be contracted out for their contractors to produce some kind of value. Obviously, private sector organisations are marked on the financial profit that they make. So but they do actually deliver some value within the communities in terms of offering trainee positions, offering apprenticeships, and they do voluntary work in the communities, and they also donate to charities. But this can be seen as an add-on because it's not part of their business strategy, and leaves them open to accusations of maybe it being a public relations exercise and quite tokenistic. For change to happen, local organisations need to ensure that social value is part of their commissioning and procurement, so that it does become a requirement for businesses who actually want to contract to deliver those services. In our discussions with our social enterprise consultant, she identified that by doing business differently, organisations can create a huge knock-on effect in the local community and the public purse. She discussed and she identified several ways in which organisations can bring social value to the community, and that was by the creation of apprenticeships and job opportunities. Reduced unemployment not only creates more money for the Treasury, but it also creates more disposable income within local communities and therefore can help sustain local firms. She identified that organisations can boost the local economy. They can benefit from a multiplier effect which creates more jobs. Organisations can support fledgling social enterprises who in turn will create more social impact within the communities. Supporting work of school and community groups, being involved in community cohesion projects which reduce isolation, and creating benefits within the community can also benefit an organisation as it raises their profile. She accepted the difficulties in terms of defining and measuring social impact, but said that organisations just need to use the model that best suits themselves and make sure that they are creating real social impact within the community. I'll now hand you over to Louise, who will discuss our case study, the Wrekin Housing Trust.
The Wrekin Housing Trust is a registered provider of social housing. It's a charitable housing trust that was formed in 1999 to accept the transfer of housing stock and employees from Telford and Wrekin Council. It's got over 12,000 properties in Shropshire and Staffordshire for affordable rent and low-cost home ownership. And in 2004 it formed a group structure and has Choices Housing Association as well as a few social enterprises, Revive and South Shropshire Furniture Scheme in its group, and the Shropshire Housing Alliance. There's many examples of the activities that the Wrekin Housing Trust do with the aim of creating a social impact. For example, it offers apprenticeship and trainee roles within the organisation. It's developed relationships with Job Centre Plus and local schools to offer work placement opportunities. Through its supply chain network, it builds in the requirement in its contracts for contractors and suppliers to offer apprenticeship, trainee and volunteering opportunities. It's heavily engaged in community safety partnership within the Borough of Telford and Wrekin and involved in the government's Troubled Families programme locally. It's also a partner within the antisocial behaviour unit in the borough. It gets involved in cohesion activities, for example working with partners and residents to gain accreditation from Keep Britain Tidy in recognition of the work that it's done to make areas cleaner, greener and safer. It provides debt and welfare benefit advice to its tenants through a team of 7 employees that it actually commits to. Through the Wrekin Housing Trust development programme that has an aim of building over 1,700 new homes between 2012 and 2016, that it offers prosperity to a lot of neighbourhoods where these properties are being built. It helps sustain local businesses in this area and also helps create jobs. This is just an example of how Wrekin Housing Trust development programme in building new homes actually creates a social impact. For example, every new home we build creates a job for someone like Darren and his mate Kev. We thought this visualised it. However, the Wrekin Housing Trust doesn't have any systems in place to measure the outcomes from a lot of these activities. There are some of the activities, particularly around community safety and cohesion, that it can be difficult to understand the impact that they make and the benefit they bring to the Wrekin Housing Trust and its tenants. There's also some within the organisation that find it difficult to see how helping one tenant get into work and the Wrekin Housing Trust committing its resources to doing this can actually benefit the organisation and the wider population of its tenants. However, some of this may be because the Wrekin Housing Trust doesn't have clear purposes for all the activities it tries to do around social impact, and therefore doesn't measure the benefits and understand those benefits and is able to explain those benefits, and this may be because of this. The Wrekin Housing Trust has recently embarked on a joint venture with South Shropshire Furniture Scheme that's in its group. The aim is for South Shropshire Furniture Scheme to carry out some of its service contracts to the Trust's properties, with the aim of improving service levels and efficiencies for the Wrekin Housing Trust. South Shropshire Furniture Scheme employ 2 paid staff to actually do this and have a team of 4 volunteers or trainees that work with them. These volunteers or trainees are actually local disadvantaged, unemployed people who are unpaid for the work they do to deliver these services, but in return they receive training and support for up to 8 weeks. The results so far are really encouraging. However, it's fair to say that if there wasn't trust between the 2 organisations, there may well be problems. This venture is very new for South Shropshire Furniture Scheme, and they're untested in this area. So if this trust didn't exist, then it could be problematic. The Wrekin Housing Trust is also looking at how it can support smaller local businesses and or social enterprises to get involved in doing other work for the organisation. For example, it's planned improvement work such as fitting kitchens, bathrooms, windows, doors, and some of its environmental improvement works. However, the Wrekin Housing Trust does face economic challenges like other social landlords, and cost efficiencies are getting increasingly important. So potentially you could see a conflict of interest if it were to use smaller local businesses between achieving economies of scale and achieving social impact. I'm now going to hand you over to Colette, who will conclude our presentation.
The Public Services Social Value Act, in theory, can be a tool for the public sector to deliver social impact through others. There are difficulties around the lack of expertise to build social impact into commissioning and procurement processes. But consideration needs to be given to this because organisations need to ensure that social value is a priority if they're going to see social value created in communities through others. Building social value into commissioning and procuring of services could be a real solution to improving our communities and delivering social impact in the communities, particularly at a time when there's insufficient resources within public services. We've heard for the Wrekin Housing Trust, if it has a clear purpose for creating social value within the community, there's a real opportunity to gain added value. Our initiative with South Shropshire Furniture Scheme is seen as a real solution for the Wrekin Housing Trust in terms of service delivery in relation to improving quality of services and also efficiencies. The third sector is seen as the natural organisation to deliver social value within our communities, and it can bring new innovative ways for service delivery. Louise has discussed how it's difficult to see how some activities that the Wrekin Housing Trust engage in bring about benefits to the community. So it can in fact sort of there'll be some concerns around the fact that it's a tick box exercise. But we've identified that if Wrekin Housing Trust had a defined purpose and we were able to measure that, then the outcomes of these activities could be seen less of a fad but more of a solution. The third sector, it's the purpose. The purpose is to create social impact. So in terms of the Social Value Act, it could be a real advantage if more awards of contracts went to social enterprise. It'd be a real opportunity for them to deliver public services and strengthen their organisations, and for people to gain further social value within our communities. However, as identified, award of these contracts does remain low, but it is early days. For the private sectors, if public bodies embrace the Social Value Act and include social value and the proving of social value within their procurement and commissioning services, larger companies will need to look at this as part of their business strategies and not just as a PR exercise. Otherwise they're unlikely to win contracts, the current contracts that they normally get. For smaller business, it can be seen as a real opportunity to deliver services to the local community. I'd like to thank you for your time today. The next few slides are all the references that we've used in terms of the research we've done on the social impact paper. If you would like to ask questions, please visit our website at www.fadorsolution.co.uk. Thank you.